Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're chatting with Jason Anarchy from Jason Anarchy Games. Jason has published nearly 20 different titles, with his newest title, Cheese Factory, in its final 2 days on Kickstarter. Jason, welcome to the binge. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it is fantastic having you, a fellow Canuck. This is awesome.
Yeah, we're not too far away from each other. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we're staying off air, like about 2 hours away, I guess, from each other. So that's, man, it's always awesome to talk to different publishers from around the world, and but it's always cool when you get to talk to somebody that's close to home as well. I guess, elephant in the room, are you going to be going to Breakout Con this weekend?
Weird thing with Breakout Con, it's the same weekend as Anime North this year, and every year at Anime North, I run the all-night D&D on the Saturday.
Okay.
So there's an audience, and I run a D&D game there, and I get the audience involved, and everyone's up super late, and it can get pretty wild. And we haven't done it in a while, but we'll be back this year, and we'll be masked, and have a murder mystery planned this year.
Sounds
so
awesome.
There'll be a one and done murder mystery game, and spoiler alert if anyone's going to this, but the audience will be there'll be one shared character for the audience. They'll be playing an annoying sidekick character named Bonzo that will be constantly annoying the players up on stage, which I think will be great fun for everybody.
Oh, that sounds like a blast. Yeah, and just a side note for those who are listening, wondering, hey, why has there been 2 podcasts this week, like back to back? Why aren't they spaced out normally? Again, because we've got Breakout Con, which I'll be at this particular weekend, and we'll be showcasing our games with Tin Robot Games, as well as the Board Game Binge podcast. It was too much of a crunch at the end of the week, and this happened to line up very well with Jason's Cheese Factory launch. So we put together, this episode will be coming out tomorrow morning if you're listening to it on the audio. Of course, you could be watching it live right now. So Jason, you've got a lot of titles. You've been in this, I think it looks like your Kickstarters go back to like 2013. So over a decade in the industry. Where did all this begin for you? How did this all start?
So everyone's going to have their own story, but the way it worked out for me is, I kind of did the unfun stuff first. I didn't think I would have any kind of career doing anything creative or anything fun ever. So I went to school for business management to get a specific job at the newspaper I already worked at.
Oh, nice.
And then by the time I had graduated, though, all those positions were eliminated, and the new jobs they were creating were not desirable jobs to have. So I was kind of like, that's no good. So it's like, I was just, looking for something better for a little while. But then at a certain point, for my hobbies, for my free time, since I was a kid, I just kind of made games for my friends to play, and D&D campaigns and Hero Quest campaigns, and it was just fun stuff that I like to do, and I'd always make them really funny. And I didn't think twice about it, but my friends always wanted to play them at any given point, which is great. As a designer, that turns into a problem of finding playtesters, frequently. But that's just something we did for fun. And so at a certain point, I looked at it, and I was like, our D&D adventures, I bet, are more fun than anyone else in the world right now. We have such great times doing these. And I was like, maybe we can do something with this. So I had a friend at a wedding where it was the end of the night, we were drunk on free scotch. And he was like, hey, you're always drinking and playing these RPGs you make. Why don't you make one that incorporates drinking? And then that was like the seed of Drinking Quest, the original drinking RPG, which was my first game.
Oh, wow.
So props to my friend Nick for suggesting I do that. But at that point, I went to school for business management, and I had a bunch of business skills and stuff like that. So I already knew all the unfun stuff. So I was like, all right, I'm going to make this game called Drinking Quest. And then the other part of it, too, is I'm a big fan of punk rock. And, not the burn the world down stuff, but, think for yourself, DIY work ethic kind of stuff. So it's like, all right, well, I'll kind of create this business model where it's like I'm a touring punk band in the 90s, but instead of CDs, it'll be this card game. And, I'll go to conventions and stuff, and, we'll see what happens. So it was a little bit before Kickstarter was in Canada. It was 2011. So I saved up $6,000, and I'm like, all right, I'll print a small run of games like locally. And, even if it fails, at least I was a game designer once. So,
wow.
So I did that. And then, I ran an ad on Facebook, and then it just took off right away. People responded to the ad. And I'm like, whoa, somebody in Germany ordered one of my games? This is wild. And I've just been riding that high ever since. So
how'd you manage the fulfillment back then? Like, that was like
very poorly. I just So I was just doing everything myself. I was sending everything through Canada Post at like these insanely high rates.
Oh
And
God, yeah.
I didn't print with a specialty card company. I was printed with like a general printing company. And the cost per game was like $13. It was like unheard of. It was just insane. So I was making a tiny bit of a profit at first, but eventually I started to figure things out. Some industry people reached out, like Danny O'Neill from Alliance at the time.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, we want to put out your game. And, I didn't quite understand the significance of a big publisher or a big distributor like Alliance, reaching out at the time. So I actually turned them down at first. I was like, nah, that's fine. I'm doing all right. And, but then months later, it's like, okay, I think I can get the cost per unit down to an amount where it makes sense to ship them to the US. And then, so from there, that was a big start of doing like international cons. Danny brought me to my first Gen Con, and I've been doing those ever since as well.
So were you actually fulfilling to the States from Canada? So although you got a better manufacturing cost, you're still fulfilling everything from here.
The business model was do every job myself except illustration, because I can draw, but not on a level that people would want to buy. So I paid an artist, and I basically still have that model up until pretty recently, where the last couple of years now I basically have like a second in command. I've been training to do all the jobs. So if I don't want to do something, I can pay this person to do that, which is nice. So it's been pretty crazy. So the goal was always to kind of be, again, back to like my favorite punk bands, in the 90s, like Fat Records and Epitaph were these, small labels. Yeah. They were incredibly popular, but they weren't really that popular. So it's like, okay, if I can kind of get to that point where I'm at like the top of the underground, I feel like that would be a nice place to be.
So after you finished getting your Drinking Quest game out, did that essentially became your full-time job then, or were you still doing other work on the side, or?
It was, I still did I did a part-time job for about a year. And then after that, it was my full-time job. So yeah, I already, I started working on Drinking Quest 2 right away, and then Drinking Quest 3. Yeah, it was like 2011, 2012, 2013. And then 2014, I did a box set of those first 3 games. And then, I just kept doing a game a year. And then at a certain point, it was like, okay, I think I can do 2 games a year. And so I've just been riding that momentum ever since.
Oh, my, that's phenomenal. I'm just sharing on the screen for those who are watching the video. You kind of obviously got a lot of games in your portfolio here, but you did a shift, right? So there was, I guess, from your Drinking Quest into then, I guess, Haiku Warrior, and then you had this kind of almost, I call it like a hard left, right? Going into more softer titles, right? Like one Pretending to Be Grown Up. Another one you had was, I believe, something about being sad.
Your friend is sad.
Your friend is sad. But the numbers on these were very high, right? Like if I look at, sorry, if people are watching, I'm sure their eyeballs are just spinning now because I'm flipping through this real fast. But I mean, almost 6,000 backers on Pretending to Grow Up, right? Or Pretending to Grown Up.
Pretending to Grown Up.
Yeah. And when I look at your, the one with the sad, I think was in around 5,000. Yeah, it was almost 5,000 backers on Your Friend is Sad as well. Clearly that's a different theme and genre than drinking games, right? What made you kind of go take that kind of hard left and say, I want to go into this zone? Was there something that kind of inspired you to do that, or what kind of pulled you into those particular designs?
Yeah, well, with this model of doing everything and just being your life the whole time, like it's I can't put out something that I'm not excited about.
Yeah.
And it's like, I love the Drinking Quest universe. That's great. But, as a designer, I don't want to be the drinking guy, and it's like, the biggest question I ever get is, when are you going to make Weed Quest? And it's like, I will never make Weed Quest. I'm sorry. I'm not going to be the guy with all the vices. And it's like, so as a designer, as a creator, as a comedy writer, which, I think of myself a bit more than a designer, because I make funny games. Like, that's my brand. So, I like Drinking Quest. I like the 18+ humor. I like drinking, not as much as I did 11 years ago, but it's still, I believe in, what the game is. But it's like, I just want to show my range, and I want to be funny in different ways. And I want the type of game I make, all I do is I just think of my usual game group, more so before the pandemic. But we're a bunch of adults who haven't seen each other in forever, and when we get together, we're just a bunch of dummies, and we've had a few beers. And there have been so many nights where we've opened up a big box game, we tried to learn it for 3 hours, and we don't play, and everyone goes home. So it's like the goal is always to kind of been, it's something you can open and then learn and then play in the same night. And considering everyone kind of has a low attention span. So it's like, I bet I'm not the only group in the world like that. And, there are others in that same world. So that's kind of been my target audience. So within that, trying to be funny in different ways, with different themes and different games. And then with webcomics, it's always a different collaborator doing the artwork. And often there's an established, tone or sense of humor. So I have a lot of fun kind of writing or playing in those different sandboxes and kind of writing humor in that tone. So yeah, basically, I just want to challenge myself, keep doing things that are different, keep doing things that I'm excited about to keep that going. And ideas are the easy part. It's just execution is everything. I can only do 1 or 2 games a year.
Yeah.
So it's like, I've got this bottleneck of games, in the queue. And it's like, okay, well, if I want to do this, I'm looking at 2024 or 2025 or whatever. And it's a good problem to have, and I'll take it for sure.
So a game like Your Friend is Sad, right? And about cheering up a sad friend. To me, from the outside looking in, seems like it's focused on a game that's kind of meant to kind of help people, right? Or to teach social skills, so to speak, with even younger people and so forth. Was that the intent? Because that seems like that's kind of outside of come up with some funny ideas and some cool things. Sure. Like it seems like it's a very specific focus on it, which obviously is clicked right quite well. Yeah. Where did that come from? Like that idea came from somewhere, right?
I think there is a benefit in the sense that it normalizes that everybody is sad and it's okay to talk about it and to exist. But I feel like that's a secondary feature of the game. So we do have a serious page in the rule book that was written by someone that's an expert in the field kind of thing. Yeah. I was working with Shen, who did the artwork for that game, and he's got a lot of like popular memed comics. Yeah. And he very commonly does themes of depression and things like that. So we agreed on the theme of, okay, it's a game about cheering up a sad friend. We're like, okay, how do we make that funny? And we just kind of so there's a few different kinds of cards, and they're funny in certain ways. So you got your cheer up cards that depict Shen, who is the nameless sad friend in the game, and his friend that's trying to cheer him up is just this featureless character that's always super happy on the card, and Shen is always just plain sad on the card, but in all these ridiculous situations. So it's the same beat, but it's interesting in how we frame it on every card. And then the other card is the other type of card are life cards. So Shen had these comics where he depicts life as this big purple buff dude that's just always trying to kick your ass. And we got those, and it's just the sad friend is there, but then life is this big, mean, imposing bully on each card, but they're doing silly things like go-karting or eating ice cream and things like that. But life's always just making it worse in some way on the card. But then the conceit of the game is, the game has a wooden turn marker with a sad friend face on it. So the whole game you're passing this around. Mm-hmm. But whoever wins, whoever's the first to get 20 cheer up points, they can flip over the token, and he goes from being slightly sad to slightly happy. So it's it's kind of it's a funny beat because it's like, oh, we've done all this for kind of this small thing, but often that's how it works like that. So the goal of the game wasn't to do anything educational per se, but the feedback from it has just been amazing. People saying they can relate to this, and they're so happy it exists and things like that. Because it's we just made it from scratch. It wasn't based on anything. I guess there wasn't anything like that before. It's amazing when people say things like that at conventions. And, because of COVID, we haven't even done a lot of conventions with it. But this past March, I think it was, at PAX East, it's like the feedback was incredible. So absolutely. So I've got a few in the coming months. So hopefully people continue to like it after that.
And then Cheese Factory. Where'd the idea for Cheese Factory come from?
Okay, yeah. So totally switching tones here. So working with Tiny Sneck Comics. I love Tiny Sneck Comics, and all these webcomic games, they usually aim for something 14 plus. So Drinking Quest is always 18, 21 plus. So these games, I'm kind of going for edgy light a little bit. So with Tiny Sneck Comics, a very different tone. He's got a lot of really bizarre, kind of off-brand kind of jokes where things aren't quite right. we'd done a previous game called Heck that had a lot of snakes in it. These tiny snack comics, snakes or snacks, however you want to say it. And in that game, there was like a bidding mechanic. Everyone had like a tiny screen. And one of the screens depicted a cheese factory and all these snakes working at a cheese factory. And the idea was great. And then when I got it back from Alex, a Tiny Snack, he had all these great little inside jokes on the screen. And one of them was this like lame looking snake that was like a 50-year-old male pattern baldness with a mustache, like manager with a frown on his face, looking at the workers and kind of frowning. And there was a sign under him that said, "It has been 0 days since Cheese Fire." And I always thought that was a really good joke. And then at some point in my head, I was like, we got to make a cheese factory game that has cheese fires in it somehow. So that was kind of the mission statement. And then it kind of bounced around for a few years, and then it eventually got done. And it turned into a game where you have all these like Dr. Seuss-esque kind of machines with different kind of powers, basically, to make the cheese. You're trying to be the first to make 20 cheese points worth of cheese. But the fun is how your unique cheese factory plays out every time, because everyone's going to have the ability to do something different. They always stack differently. But then you can also start cheese fires on your friends' machines and destroy them. So there's a little bit of kind of vindictiveness in there. Depending on the group, there's different ways to play. And then because Tiny Snack is so good at drawing these off-brand characters, you can choose a different, cute animal chef that is kind of derpy and weird looking. But the artwork's very appealing, and it was a lot of fun to work on.
It's definitely cute. I'm showing on the screen right now. So we've got, I guess you have your 3 decks, right? You've got your giant, I guess it's the snake cheese deck. You've got the recipe deck, and you have a machine deck.
Craft deck, recipe machine.
Yeah. So how do you play this game? If you're going to describe to somebody kind of the overview of how you play this game, how would they go about playing this game?
Yeah, so the actual gameplay, basically there's like a common market, and there's like available cards at any given time. But every turn you have 3 actions to make your cheese factory. So you can use your actions to build a machine for the listed number of actions. You can take blind craft cards, which give you ingredients to make cheese, or possibly other fun bonus cards like cheese fires. If you take an ingredient that's face up, that costs 2 actions, but you know what it is, and maybe you're going for something specific. And then basically you look at the recipe cards and you're trying to match those ingredients to make either that slice or wheel of cheese. And the whole game is just nonsense. We didn't do any research about cheese. There's no real cheese in it. Everything's just ridiculous. So you just, you'll be using these ingredients to make a single slice of cheese, for example, or a whole wheel of cheese. Strangely, with this game, I've gotten some of the angriest internet comments I've ever gotten from people that are pretty familiar with cheese making. So I apologize. I'm sure there's a real cheese making simulation out there that someone can make one day. But this is not it. We just wanted to make a fun game, and we thought that would be a pretty funny title and theme.
And when you're making these different recipes, so is it like you're making sets and you're placing those down to score your points? Is it more like a deck builder? Like how does that mechanic work?
Yeah, so it's like engine building with the machines to get better at, so
better
something
cheese.
might give you an extra action, or, make you better at doing something else. And then the recipe cards have a set number of ingredients. It's like hand management, and then you're matching what's there to cash in and collect those points, kind of thing.
I gotcha. And I just want to say congratulations on, I'll put this in Canadian dollars. We're both Canadian, so we can finally be on the same page with what the number says.
Yeah.
But usually I'm talking to American or European guests, and their numbers don't match what I see because I can only see what pops up here in Canada. But almost 50,000 you guys are hitting funding on this. So congrats on that. That is awesome on a goal of 20,000. You are in your final 42 hours. You got to be pretty excited and pretty happy with where you've landed on this, I guess.
Oh.
Huh?
Yeah. Well, we've unlocked 8 of the 9 stretch goals, so there's 1 left. But like already, like the game is so much better than it would have been. So it's like, box quality, card quality, everything's covered in linen. We added 4 extra characters, so now there's 8. The final stretch goal is everyone gets a sticker of this kind of fan favorite character named Boots the Unicorn. So Tiny Snack Comics, again, I can't just overstate how good he is at drawing like derpy off-brand characters. So it's kind of like this frumpy unicorn that was wearing shoes. And I was like, oh, can we put this guy in the game? We'll name him Boots. And he's like, okay. And then, so we'll give everyone a free sticker of that guy. Because it's a small game, but there's a lot of content. And then at a certain point, it's like okay, well, I think the game's the best it can be. We'll start throwing in a few freebies as stretch goals, and then throw that on your laptop, and it's a fun extra to have.
I was trying to find the image there. So I see Boots the Unicorn. So he's got the little red boots. Is that the guy?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's him. Yeah, he's got like the flowy rainbow mane and everything.
Yeah. That's awesome. So with a game like this, hitting 50,000, and when I was going through like your history of the games you've launched, you've been fairly consistent, right? Like when you see campaign to campaign, you guys are doing quite well and consistently well. And, it's a cool thing to see, because what it tells me is that you've kind of, you've nailed probably your audience and your following, and you've established, your fan base, but you're also probably now I don't want to say formulaic, but you've come up with a model for creating these campaigns.
Sure. A business strategy.
That you're carrying over from campaign to campaign. Is there anything specific that you would say that if there's someone out there that's working on a campaign of their own that they should definitely do, and this is something you make sure you try to do with each game that you launch?
Yeah. So there's probably a few things. First of all, so know what your hook is for your game, which answers the question of why would people want to play this, and who would want to play it is a good question to ask too. So you used to have an elevator pitch, you used to have 30 seconds, but attention spans are not what they once were, especially online. So you get like one tagline. What is your tagline? Make sure it's amazing. Make sure it explains what the game is, and it just needs to be good enough for someone to want to learn more.
Yeah.
So Drinking Quest, it's a drinking RPG. It's a drinking game and a tabletop RPG. And I've just used that same line forever, and that's worked. Pretending to grown up was it's a game for grown-ups who feel like they're pretending. Your friend is sad. A game where you're trying to cheer up a sad friend. It doesn't need to be big or flashy. It just needs to say what the game is. If it's clever, that's great, but clever is secondary to descriptive, I feel like.
Yeah.
So whatever your game is, it's maybe the person who makes that hardcore real cheese making simulation. A cheese making simulation, well researched, blah blah blah. I don't know, whatever it could be. So have a good hook, and then know who you would be selling it to, who would reasonably buy this game that you're making, and then come up with a plan to reach them. But don't put all your eggs in one basket too. It's when I started out, my plan was very different than what it turned into. So I mentioned that online ads took off right away. But my original plan was to just, I was going to cold call individual comic and gaming shops and see if they wanted to buy my game. In retrospect, that would have been a terrible idea because they only deal with a few distributors. They don't want the hassle of dealing with some individual guy in his basement kind of thing, right?
Yep.
So it's, things like that. So make a plan that has, a bunch of different things that you're going to do. How are you going to reach people online, at conventions? Is there a distribution strategy? If you're brand new, that might be difficult. But if you're going to conventions and you're making industry contacts and someone from a distribution company, that could be helpful. That's after being funded though.
Sure.
Board Game Geek is a very popular site for board games. I've almost never used it at all, and especially for promotion. Yeah. I've advertised on there a couple of times, but in general, because of the nature of the games I do, they're casual comedy games. Yeah. And Board Game Geek is for like hardcore games, and there's a very set kind of mindset of what is a good game on Board Game Geek. And it's just never been a great fit for me. But that being said, for probably most other games, it would be. So, build a community there, let people know what you're doing in advance. Up until Cheese Factory, actually, I went a long time where I just basically surprise launched every game. Where it's like, I'm launching a Kickstarter tomorrow. Like, I might keep it general and give a bit of a hint, but I'll just launch. But what you're supposed to do is build up the hype ahead of time. Kickstarter added, it's not even that new of a feature, but I think a couple years ago they added something where you can you can put in your email address and be notified the day of launch. And that is a great feature. So that's why I started doing that with Cheese Factory. There's a tracking link you can put for things like that, and you can know how well it works. So that's really interesting too. So build up the hype ahead of time. Build up a mailing list, and get people signing up for that early email link. Post on Reddit, social media, wherever it makes sense for the theme of what you're doing. Try and build a community ahead of time, so no one's ever heard of you the day that you're launching, sort of thing.
No more surprises.
yeah, exactly.
When I was looking at this page, the one thing that did surprise me is that there was no video, right? Like you have the campaign video at the top, but in the body of the campaign, no video.
Yeah,
it shocked me.
It was a technical reason.
Okay.
So there's I ended up doing a thrown together gameplay video in one of the updates.
Yeah.
But it was just the guy putting it together had some issues, and then once the campaign starts, you're just busy all the time.
Yeah.
And we just didn't get around to putting it. So I hope I described it well enough on the page, and there's a rule book link and everything. But I haven't had people asking for it, so I hope I've done a good enough job of kind of explaining the whole thing.
It makes me question convention, right? Because if someone was to show me a page that didn't have a video and said, guess how this is going to fund, not in a million years would I say, oh, they're going to hit, 5 figures.
Yeah, well, there's like an overview video at the top that's kind of funny, but it's not like, here's 4 people playing the game kind of thing.
Yeah, but that makes me rethink things to say, well, maybe you don't need that, or maybe you can strip things down. And this is constantly what I'm working on in various campaigns I've been running over the years is, I've done one where I threw everything with the kitchen sink in there. I had more videos than I could put on the page, right? I actually had some of the content creators saying, how come my video's not on there? And I'm like, I've got 20 videos on there. I got to now cycle through the different people that have videos so I can actually put them on the page.
I know that feeling of sometimes you feel like you're doing every single thing that you can, and sometimes the number just doesn't budge.
And that was the case when
it's just out of your hands sometimes.
Yeah, and I compare it to the prior campaign where I didn't do that. I had less videos, so then it's like, okay, is less is more? And so you're constantly going through this struggle trying to really look at the data, right? And I think that's kind of the key learning here as well, which you guys are clearly, and I like the words, the business plan, right? So you articulate that very well, is, you can do everything and get a lot of feed, but if you're not collecting that data and then actually looking at the data and analyzing it, then it's very tough for you to learn and then employ those learnings on your next iteration, right? So if anything I'd say to people is collect the data, right? Collect as much data as you can. Kickstarter has tags, as you said, right? When you launch your campaign.
Kickstarter has a lot of great tools for data.
GameFound does as well. GameFound, one of the cool things about GameFound, and again, I think I have opinions on there on the types of games that belong on GameFound, but if you are on GameFound, you can create those tags even before the campaign even launches, right? So you can create 100 tags if you want. Every single iteration thing you do, you attach a tag to it. So then when the campaign is complete, you can see where all those pledges came from. So it's very, very helpful for you if you're going to launch more than one game to start saying, okay, where am I going to focus my funds? This thing over here, I spent a lot of money on, I had zero impact. This other thing, I spent a little bit of money, but it seemed to have pretty good impact for the dollar. So maybe I'll put more funds next time over here. It's just key to kind of keep post-gaming, for lack of a better word, right?
Yeah, the tracking links are so effective to see if ads are working correctly. Because if the money you're getting back is more than you're putting in ads, that's a good sign. But then how many people are, knowing about the game and then just searching for it, and then you don't see that tracking link too. So it's always tricky because you have as complete of data as you could probably get, but it's there's still a little bit of instinct and guesswork in no matter what you do. But just keep learning and trying to get better, I guess is the point. So
it's an interesting comment you actually made there too, because it makes me think of services like Gelop or BackerKit, right, which are social media amplification companies. And I mean, you could be paying 15 to 20% of the pledge value for every pledge they bring in. And often people look at that and say, wow, that's a really high number. That's too high. I can't afford that. But what they're not realizing is they're only charging you on pledges that they can directly link. So somebody actually clicked on their link and made a purchase. If they come back the next day and said, I thought about it, I want to buy this game, and they just search it and find it themselves and buy it, it doesn't count towards that BackerKit or Gelop. So that percentage has to be high because what they're doing is accounting for all the pledges they've likely brought in that they can't even track, right? So
20% isn't even that high. I don't know. I feel like that's still pretty good. That's and I see their ads all the time, and I haven't used Gelop yet.
Yeah,
but I talked with them recently, and they're like, "Oh, would you like to use this for this new campaign?" And I looked into it a little bit, but I was pretty busy, and I didn't. That happens with a lot of things where I'd like to do this, but then I don't for whatever reason. But I looked at it and I'm like, I know how to do ads. I'll do my ads for this one, but maybe in the future.
They're great. Even BackerKit, even if you're not using them, and both these companies want to deal with higher budgets, right? In advertising promotional spend. But even if you're not having a lot of money dump into advertising, I would still recommend going to even a site like BackerKit. They've got a ton of tools on there that you can use for free that explain things and give you tips and tricks on how you can improve the efficiency of your campaign. And it's well worth even checking out, even if you're not going to use, the Pledge Manager or even their larger services. So with the number of games that you've launched, clearly, as you said, you got 2 coming a year. Can you tease what the next game, like what's the next title coming? Are you allowed to say?
Yeah. All right, so it's another webcomic team up with Cassandra Comics.
Nice.
So this game leans a little more female. It's about like relatable day-to-day life. It's called Self-Careless. So it's a take on self-care, and you're trying to find a life balance. So Cassandra Comics, she does like a 4-panel gag strip, and it's relatable humor. It's very funny, but her illustration style is like weirdly beautiful. It's like the line work is like incredible to look at, but it's incredibly funny at the same time. So it's like, okay, when I did that game with Shen, Your Friend Is Sad, we had 32 guest comics from other creators, and I asked Shen, I'm like, who would you like me to get on for a comic guest? And he said his first thing was Cassandra Comics, and it's like, oh, okay, I hadn't heard of her, so I looked her up, and I'm like, oh wow, yeah, this is good. She's got a big following. Okay, great, And so I've been reading her stuff, and then her manager reached out, and I'm like, I would like to do this. And so yeah, we're doing a game about life balance, and it's 1 to 2 players. So if you're feeling stressed about life and you need to get your head into a place where you need to organize things, sit down for 15 minutes, play this game, play with a second player, and it's a joke per card. It's very light, very breezy, and it'll be like a low cost, like entry-level card game sort of thing.
Oh, that's awesome. And when is that launching? When's that coming out?
That'll be October.
In October. Wow. Jason, I just want to wish you the best of success with this campaign, Cheese Factory. For people who want to check it out, again, we're in the final 2 days. I'm putting a link directly in the show notes. Certainly, if you go to Kickstarter and just type in Cheese Factory, you'll find it. But if you want the quick link, that'll be in our show notes. Check it out. Looks like a lot of fun. And maybe in October, we'll get you back with Cassandra Comic. We'll get her on the podcast and have you guys back for the next game.
Hey, that'd be awesome. Yeah, sounds like a lot of fun.
Take care. Cheers.
Thank you.
This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply subscribe to our YouTube channel, Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.